curiosity is a great way to take the first step towards change.
If you weren't curious about growing at the pace that you wanted to grow, going and seeking out mentors, seeking out people that could help you, do you believe you would be sitting here right now?
Is 100% no. You know that doing the same thing is not going to get you to where you want to go. It's like, I just have a fundamental belief that your network is your net worth. If I want to be an 8-figure agency, I need to be around 8-figure entrepreneurs. Sharon has already built an 8-figure agency. I would have never had access to that. So I was learning from the network.
You're listening to the #1 podcast in the world for real estate agents, the RE Agent Podcast. I am your host, Coach Vikram Deol with the Real Estate Sales Academy. And with me is my co-host and good buddy, partner in crime, Cody May of Sheridan Street. Cody May, tell me, what is new in your life today?
You stole my thunder, and I'm going to let you steal my thunder, and that's okay. Like, every once in a while, you're allowed to steal my thunder. And today is one of those days where I will allow you to steal my thunder.
I didn't ask for permission.
Well, you should ask for forgiveness. But no, things are good. Things are good. I just got off a really great role play call with our sales team.
It seems like a stupid waste of time. Why would you role play your sales team?
Role play? Why would you role play? Why would you practice? Like, practicing is for dummies. Practicing is for dummies.
Some waste of time.
Yeah.
Why were you role playing with your team?
Yeah, we're just we're working on overcoming objections, working on framework to make sure that we are able to effectively communicate our processes, because I have this fundamental belief in my heart that we can help more real estate agents. But the only way to help more real estate agents is to get them to understand where the gap is currently for them. Right. Where a lot of agents come into calls and they don't realize they have a gap. So it's our job in order to help them understand there is a gap and how we can help them fix it. But the only way that we do that is through asking good questions. So a lot of it comes down to, and a lot of it is mindset based things, where it's really trying to get into the mind of a real estate agent in such a way that allows them to see a bigger vision for their future. And that's why we role play. We role play so that we can effectively communicate what it is that we do. We can effectively communicate how we can help real estate agents, because everyone that comes into our program is winning right now, but it has taken a shift in mindset. And I'm really curious to know from you, Vic, because obviously you work with a lot of agents around, mindset shifts, but also just around, sales. What should the mindset of a real estate agent be? And what are some common downfalls that you see from a sales perspective in a real estate agent?
Yeah. I'll talk about some of the downfalls. I was actually just talking with Samir from this company. It's Lemon Tree, right? Yeah. So yeah, I was just talking with Samir from Lemon Tree Lending, and super cool dude. Same standards as us, same mindset as us. And we're talking about the sales process, right? And he's like, when I get an agent, a loan officer that tells me, that we're getting a lot of people that are pushing back on rates. He's like, bro, you shouldn't be talking about rates until the end of the process. He's like, the first thing we need to do is figure out what their needs are, and then what product we can put them into. Yeah. Right.
People are trying to be so focused on product, they're not focused on the people.
Right. Yeah. And so when we were talking, I was like, well, here, try this framework out. And I gave him a framework, and I'm like, when somebody says to you, hey, what are the rates? I was like, here, just see if this bounces off of you and what you think of it. I'm like, instead of you going into, well, the rates are competitive and we're blah, 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 which is super combative. It's super triggering. I was like, you say something along the lines of that's that, hey, Cody, that's not a problem at all. Before I give you all the rates and everything, all the products, it might make sense for me to ask you a couple of questions about your specific needs and what are you guys looking for and your timeline and things like that. And then I can share with you the right product that I would recommend. Would you find that helpful? And Samir's like, damn, that's good, right? Because if we just stop selling and start realizing that there is a human being on the other side, and it's one of the reasons why our real estate team did so well, is because they would come in and they would be like, we're going to tell them what's up. We're going to be I'm like, no, bro, how many houses have you sold? He's like, 2. You're not the trusted advisor. because you say you are. You are the trusted advisor because the prospect says you are. So the mindset, right? The mindset that a real estate agent should have is one is be super curious, right? The world has got so much innovation happening daily, from AI to, like what Revive is doing, to what Real is doing, to what EXP is doing, to what Compass is doing, right? There is so much innovation happening within the companies. There's also so much innovation happening to support real estate agents with different products and programs and services. And instead of you saying, that's not going to work for me, just be curious about what if it did work for you, because we started Zillow, Cody, like in 2012, and we were called the idiots of real estate. And then that year we did like $25 million.
Well, it's interesting because, Zillow is still working for a lot of people. And like, I think one of the things, and you touched on this so beautifully, is this idea that getting curious about not only the products that are available to you, but getting curious about the people, because it's very hard because if you're just a product pusher, you're a cashier and clerk. But if you actually get to sit like sales pros and sales professionals, they seek to understand. They seek to understand the current circumstance of where the prospect is at in their buying journey, and then they educate them based on that. And maybe you could speak to a little bit to this, because I think they're in order to win in this market, based on the top agents I speak with, and with you, with what you did in the Seattle area, there's this shift in mindset that needs to happen around, well, I don't sit down with people that are 18 months out, or I don't sit down with people that are 9 months out.
Oh my God.
Where it's really interesting that it's usually the agents that are doing very little transactions are the ones that are saying that, because all the agents I'm speaking with that are doing a crazy amount of transactions, like 40, 80, 300 transactions a year, they're like, we don't care if this person is 8 months, 9 months, 15 months, because we know that 15-month buyer, that 15-month seller down the road could be 1 month with the right information. So how do you shift? Because you probably had people like this on your team. So how do you
very short period of time?
But is that like what's your take on that? Like, what's your take on that philosophy of business?
Leads are humans, right? Leads are people. Like, that could be your mom, it could be your grandma. So first is like, I think you're the one who claimed this, like humanizing leads. We would call it something different, but we'd always just like, we didn't call it leads in our office. We said, how many new people came in our database in the last
future clients?
Yeah. We didn't call them future clients, but we call them people, right? I'm like, how many moms came into our database overnight? And they're like, well, based off the names, there were 7 women. I'm like, how many dads showed up? They're like, based off the names, there were 6. I'm like, so we have 13 moms and dads, 13 sisters and brothers, 13 human beings that need our help, because unfortunately the real estate, just like every industry,
it's not just the real estate industry.
The top 20 are really good. The bottom 20 are really bad. And then there's a good chunk of people in the middle that are like average, above average, below average, but there's a good chunk of really good people.
Where do you think that this philosophy comes from? Because I'm really curious that the philosophy of like, hey, if they tell me they're 12 months out, just put them on my CRM and let the CRM do the work.
Well, So when the agent who doesn't know how to follow up, unfortunately, and it's not always your fault, but it is your responsibility, right? So the agent that doesn't know how to follow up, what kind of business do they want, Cody? If their follow-up game sucks, what kind of business do they need?
They want the now business.
If they weren't taught what to say, what kind of business do they need?
Well, they need lay down sales.
They need the lay down sales. And in 2020, how many lay down sales were there?
Everything was lay down.
In 2022, how many lay down sales were there?
Very few.
In 2023, how many lay down sales were there? So the market is getting harder, but you guys are still being taught the basics of make more phone calls, follow. Well, what do I say on these calls?
Yeah.
Right. So fundamentally, they are being lied to. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody's maliciously out there trying to affect the real estate agent. I just don't believe that you are given the real information. And unfortunately, a lot of real estate agents, they don't realize that they're entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs and salespeople are problem finders, right? So we are supposed to uncover the problems, but if we weren't taught those skills, and they're all learnable, that's the crazy thing is, Cody, everything we're talking about, everybody can learn. Now, there's market knowledge that you need to have as a real estate agent.
Yeah,
I'm not going to teach you, but you should be able to learn that on your own.
Yeah.
The fundamental shift about mindset comes at, I might not know these things, but it's my responsibility to find out everything that I can, how to be a better salesperson, how to be a better communicator, how to be a better
resourcefulness.
It's becoming resourceful about your life, because this is ultimately, at the end of the day, your broker is probably making money. End of the day, your brokerage is probably making money. End of the day, the top agents in your office are making a ton of money. The question is are you making your fair share for being away from your family and friends for 16 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week? And if you're not, become more curious about learning and finding other solutions other than your broker, right? Who probably is doing the best that they can, but they're not serving you at the highest level. Other than like, I'm just going to watch YouTube videos. You pay attention when you pay. So find somebody, whether it be me or another person, right? But find somebody who actually cares about your success.
I love what you said about the curiosity, because I think curiosity is a great way to take the first step towards change.
Right.
Because if you're curious about, if you shift your mindset towards a curious tone, or if you become curious and you learn how to be curious, you ask better questions.
Can I ask you a specific question?
Yeah.
So you hired Talking More with Boardroom 2 years ago as your personal
2.5 years.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah. Probably 2 years ago. Yeah.
But you were exposed to him in 2018. So 5 years ago.
Yeah.
In the time that you were exposed to him, to the time that you hired him, to the time you're at where you're at now, if you weren't curious about growing at the pace that you wanted to grow and going and seeking out mentors and seeking out people that could help you, do you believe you would be sitting here next to me right now?
No, because the funny thing is the answer is 100% no. And the reason
that's 100% is very strong.
It's very certain. And the reason it's certain is, like, for those that don't know, I got connected. So I was invited to a Talking More conference in 2018. I observed Talkie for literally 3 more years prior to joining this program.
Right.
But
you had already had exposure.
I had exposure to the program.
Your mentors were exposed to Talkie. So I was dripping on.
I wouldn't be sitting here next to you, because the only reason I met Sharon was because he was in Boardroom at the same time I was in Boardroom. So it's just like, it was the serendipity of reinvesting back into myself, and not only reinvesting back to myself, I had this ethos to life, and I still do, where it's like, I just want to be a lifelong learner.
And so your mindset is very different than a lot of, and again, you guys, like, if I didn't have true love, like we might talk a little smack about real estate agents, but we really, really pour back into what we do, because we really want to see you guys win. Because I've been a real estate agent. I am a real estate agent. And I know that the motto of real estate agents is very guarded, right? Our egos are involved, because, we're selling ourselves, we're selling a product, and we see that everybody else is making money. And it's actually far from true. Most people in real estate, unfortunately, are not. And you can look at the stats, because how many houses are there? How many agents are there? And so the people that make it make a lot, and the people that don't, you guys get burned on 2 or 3 years of your life. You guys get burned on thousands of dollars. You get burned on the opportunity cost of finding something that might have been a better suit for you. And so, like, there's a lot of passion when we speak. And when we joke because it probably masks the pain, because we care a lot about your guys' success. So, like, when Cody goes out and says things, like, he does it from a place of heart and vulnerability. And, like, when you talk about why you joined Talkie, right, and, like, pouring into Talkie, and you were full into it. You didn't do it because you just wanted to make more money. Right. In fact, you were spending $7,000 to $10,000 with the program and the people and all the different things. Plus, you had a mindset coach for your team.
Yeah.
Like, when you invested into this program, 7, 8, 9, whatever the money was it a scary thing to do?
No, of course it was. I remember it really vividly, but, like, I also remember sitting there being like, if I don't do this, I'm going to feel stuck. And it's like, I think that first initial feeling of, like, what if this doesn't work? That for me, like, I don't know, like, I had this feeling of, like, I can't not do this because I don't want to stay where I'm currently at. And I think that there's a mentality that you eventually get to in entrepreneurship, like where it's like, you know that doing the same thing is not going to get you to where you want to go. And it's like, I just have a fundamental belief that like your network is your net worth.
Yep, absolutely.
And within that fundamental belief, it's like, if I want to be an 8-figure agency, I need to be around 8-figure entrepreneurs. I can't be hanging around just around people that are currently where I'm at, because while we might mastermind and give us each other's good ideas, it's like those people have already been there. Like Sharon has already built an 8-figure agency. Like I would have never had access to that. So, was it scary in the beginning to spend that amount of money? For sure. Cause I didn't know Sharon in the beginning. I didn't know who Sharon was.
Well, you didn't join for Sharon though.
That's exactly it. Like
you just joined because you knew there was a network of other minded people that you could, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I would assume when I joined Tony Robbins, I was like, oh, this is a like-minded group, but I'm going to have access to Tony. Whereas it was actually the opposite. The network is actually what was worth the $75,000.
Totally.
And for you, you learned a lot, and Taki's an amazing teacher. But if I were to ask you what was what was long-term the best, was it the network or the learning that you got?
Oh, it was, I think it was a little bit of both, but like the network was definitely, I was learning from the network.
Yeah.
It was the learning experiences of going to going to a boardroom event and sitting down with 8-figure entrepreneurs and like getting them, like even like Sharon and Mike Aguilera sharing their money beliefs with us. Like here's what we believe about money. It's like, oh man, well that is like hearing from 8-9-figure entrepreneurs and what they believe about money. It's like, okay, there are some fundamental shifts I need to make in my own life about how I view money in order to get to where I want to go in my business and in my life. So, man, it's
so going back to wrap this bow up, and get people back on their schedule. Mindset is not just what you came into this world with. Your mindset is constantly evolving. Whether you think you're evolving or not is a different story, but your mind is constantly looking at every piece of data that comes in, because that's how we stay safe, right? So our brains are processing like 60,000 or 60 million bits of data a second. Like the number is staggering and astonishing. And the number keeps rising because there's more and more data sets. There's more and more internets. There's more and more cell phones. There's more and more billboards. There's just more access. And with that access comes more information. When it comes to your mindset, one of the things that I've been really conscious of, you've been conscious of, and one of the things that I tell my clients is curate every moment of your life.
Yeah.
And let me just give you what I mean. Those people that you follow on Instagram and Facebook, you feel you need to because they followed you, or you went on a date with this girl, but every time you see her face, it bugs you. You're allowed to delete them, and you don't have to have guilt. You're allowed to delete your friends that are no longer friends. You're allowed to delete family members that are not serving as family. They're serving as opposition, right? Just because you're cousins, like I deleted all my cousins. I deleted 7 cousins. Like I'm still close to them. I still talk to them, but I didn't need their input on certain things that I was doing in my life, nor did I feel like they were serving me without judgment. So I just unfriended them. They still follow me on Instagram. I see that they see my stories, but we didn't communicate there. We didn't talk there. It wasn't good for us. And so I made a conscious decision to remove them. What you replace it with is even more important. So removing is one part. The second thing is right, like you got to replace it with something that you don't want to continuously happen. So remove the people that bring pain or shame or anything like that. Deal with the problem and why you're feeling that. But in the moment, you're allowed to delete them. Deal with your problem and then replace it with something positive. Get rid of the news, get rid of like the politics. Look, unless you're like an 8-figure entrepreneur and you're making more money than God, you probably aren't being served by watching what's happening in the government, right? Now, if you're passionate about it, you have a YouTube channel about it, okay, fine. But most of us don't. We just get caught up in that stuff and then that pulls us down.
Yeah.
So just go through and curate and audit your systems of communication in the world. And I guarantee you get rid of the news, you get rid of like 80% of your social media. 1, you won't miss anything. And 2, after 30 days, you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to the gym a couple times a week. Hey, I got this. You'll feel better and you'll start to perform better.
And that's, wrapping it up here. that's really Stoic philosophy. Like in the rise of over the last couple of years, I really think that Ryan Holiday has done a really great job at bringing to the forefront Stoicism. And Stoic philosophy really comes down to controlling what you can control. And I think that's a really important message for anyone currently in their environment, that they're saying, hey, all of this outside thing that I can't control, it's like, but there are things that you can control. And it's that Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, the last of humans' freedom to control, I'm going to mess up the actual quote.
Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way.
My favorite quote, I love it. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. It really solidifies everything we chatted about today, to choose one's own attitude, to really make magic happen in your own life. So, Vikram, hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Yeah, bro. Well, you're taking a little trip to Bogota this weekend. That should be exciting. Last weekend you were in Santa Marta. This week you're in Bogota.
Yeah, taking some time off. It's just enjoying life.
Well, it's a mindset shift you had from a few months ago, where you wouldn't take any time off and it was eating at your health.
Totally.
To this new mindset where you became curious.
It's a shift.
Yeah, you were curious, like, how can I do both? And is it?
It's not an and/or. It's not an and/or. It's always it's always an and.
Yeah.
Cool, brother. So I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the Our Agent Podcast, the #1 real estate podcast in the world. Hope you have a great weekend, all. We'll see you soon.